Okay. All right, everyone, welcome tonight. Thank you for joining us for our Matara practice. Um, Thank you to everyone who joined us on Friday night for our panel. It was really beautiful. And we shall continue. And also thank you for coming to the practice groups and to the study group today as well. It's been really nice to see so much participation. So tonight, I wanted to introduce a new Tara practice called Matara, um, the heart of Matara. Um, and as many of you know, we've been having green Tara practice every month, and that's a version of green Tara that we've developed. Um, but Matara is a little more involved. Matara comes out of um, my practice in India last month with Mama Justin. Um, it's come out of just this kind of deepening in these energies of particularly Shakti, um, this kind of opening up to this universal energy, guiding energy that's super saturated with love, warmth, nurturing. Um, so for me, it's this practice tonight is the practice of um, really going much deeper into and coming much deeper into relationship with Tara, and doing something that we don't often do on the Buddhist tantric side of things, which is actually integrating two deity practices together, which is white Tara. And so I want to, I'll have a few links for you that I'll post right before we begin the practice. So, just, briefly, Tara is the only female Buddha in the uh, kind of Tibetan Buddhist, Tibetan Vajrayana pantheon of deities. Um, and however, there are many um, female deities in the pantheon, right, in Tibetan Buddhism. And so all of these deities are emanating uh, from Tara herself. For those of you who are familiar with like the female deities in Tibetan Buddhism, Prajaparamita, Lama, Vajrayogini, just to name a few, and all the Taras. So traditionally, we say that there are 21 emanations of Tara, and all different colors. When I was, training in a retreat, training in a monastery, we recited Tara every day in our practice. And we recited a practice called the 21 Praises of Tara. And you essentially just run through, a recitation of all 21 Tara emanations, who they are, and their particular benefits. So there are Taras who do different things, have different functions, and so forth. Though we often only really focus on green Tara, white Tara would be right behind her, and then red Tara. And too, there's a lineage of red Tara that's also really popular. But those, green Tara is pretty much the most popular kind of practice of Tara, followed by white Tara. But we were chant this every morning, and you just kind of got into like understanding how important Tara is. But green Tara is associated with Tara is associated with compassion, and green tar particularly associated with swift compassion, just immediate compassion, intense, on the spot, direct compassion. And so in just a moment, I'll share some links with you, and you'll be able to see some pictures of green tar and white tar. Green tar sits on a lotus with her right leg extended, and that really conveys this understanding that she is really ready at any moment to jump off the cushion, to jump off the lotus, to help you. And traditionally in Tibetan religious culture, Tara is chanted, is evoked during any time of danger and crisis. The second most popular emanation of Tara would be white Tara. White Tara is associated with motherly compassion. So it's the compassion that the mother has for the child. Also, she is associated with fear. She's associated with removing fear. Often, we often believe that white Tara extends life. So when someone's dying, traditionally you would offer them a white Tara statue, and that would create the karmic conditions for them to live longer, to move through, the sickness or wherever the illness is. That's kind of a misunderstanding of that function, but I think more so Tara helps us to work with fear of dying rather than elongating our lifespan. And Tara is, of course, white Tara. She's white, and she sits full lotus on a cushion in the practice. And so in the practice, white, because all 21 praises have text, have sadhanas, right? In this practice, we will be using green Tara, becoming green Tara as the main practice, while white Tara will be a secondary practice within our bodies as green Tara. So it's going to be real fun and interesting to walk through this. There are so many origin stories related to Tara, related to these kind of ancient South Asian cults of female practitioners and female deities. My friend Rachel Wooten has a book coming out this month, I guess, in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to share her link to her book. It's on Amazon, but feel free to find this book at your local bookstores as well. So I'm just going to plop this right into the chat box here. And so, Rachel really goes through, I've read the book and have endorsed it. So it's a really beautiful book. And Rachel, I don't know if you're here yet, Rachel, but Rachel has done all this really incredible research to look into really the history of the practice of Tara. So Tara, her name means star. So one of the theories of her origin is that she is associated, or her cult of worship is associated with navigation, guiding people, through tricky waters, tricky terrain. And that definitely has lended meaning to her practice. In Tibetan, her name is Dolma, or Drolma, depending on the particular dialect, but Drolma means, Drol means to liberate. Ma is like the personification, a female personification of a liberator. So the female liberator, or I often translate it as the mother of liberation, or the mother liberator in my practice. And so she liberates us from fear. She liberates us from inactivity. She liberates us from apathy. And she is rooted within the basic energy of compassion, which is first and foremost the energy of empathy. empathy for our own discomfort, empathy for the discomfort that we experience in others around us, and taking a step further and giving rise to this aspiration to free beings from that suffering as well. So that begins the fruition of compassion. But what Tara also teaches us is that we have to put compassion into action. And so that is the completion of compassion, when we not only experience compassion, but we do something to express that compassion by disrupting discomfort and suffering for others around us. And so the color green for green Tara is a color of action. And so that becomes really important in terms of like the energy of Tara. The energy of Tara is about movement. It's about action. It's about doing, not just sitting and feeling. So today so the practice, the heart of my Tara, it's a little bit of a complex practice. And let me just change the lighting here a little bit. Turn this up a little bit. So the practice is a little more complex. And so today I want to give you the bare bones of the practice. And some of you may very well think that is super complicated as well. But I want to give you like the bare bones of the practice, the heart of the practice, which is going to be a lot. And as we continue, so this is, we're going to continue practicing Tara from here on, right? But we're going to, for me, I'll continue actually working on the text a little more. So I want to introduce more of a complete text, in the next 2 weeks as we continue our practice. So, I'm just going to drop these 2 links into the box here. So during the practice, since we don't have our texts yet, I have some links for you to kind of look at images of Tara. I'll just put that right there. So you have a green Tara and mantra link, and then you have a white Tara link as well. And so you'll be able to look at those to get a sense of how to visualize Tara and the mantra as well, which is going to be part of the practice. And we'll be doing the Tara mantra twice. So this is going to be a little different for some of you. This is going to be very similar to the Medicine Buddha text, and it's going to be very similar to our present green Tara practice. But it's just kind of going up a notch. The visualizations are going to be just a little more detailed. And when I am working with visualizations, that can be quite, well, I'll just go back. When I'm working with visualizations, I like to take it really one step at a time. And so when we're doing these practices, we're not going to get the visualizations right off the bat. The Tibetan Buddhism has cornered the market on mental visualizations. Like, you have no idea how complex the practices get in the higher levels of tantric practices. For a lot of practices, a lot of high level practices, you're actually creating movies. You're creating movies, these moving scenarios and situations within the body, and you're having to do the same thing externally. And that's called self-visualization, and we call it, self and frontal visualization. And the reason for that is that we're using visualization along with breath, along with movement sometimes, also along with chanting and sound to evoke these really deep, subtle, also can be quite intense energy shifts within the subtle energy body, So we're transforming the body in these practices. And if you've been working with us through the Green Tara practice, as well as the Medicine Buddha practice that we do every Monday. Now, it's very similar that we're taking the body as the path of transformation, right? We're not trying to bypass the body at all. We're trying to actually connect to a different expression of the body. We're trying to connect to what we would call, I don't want to use a lot of lingo, a lot of language right now, but we connect to the Sambhoga Kaya expression of reality, which is energy. So basically that means we're connecting to bodies of energy. We're connecting to our body of energy, to our subtle energy body. We're connecting to the subtle energy body of all the deities, right? So usually when you see pictures, for instance, I have Medicine Buddha here. This is a Sambhogakaya representation of the Buddha. So if anytime you see a picture of a deity like this is what we call the energy body, Sambhogakaya, right? Kaya means body. When you hear the word Kaya, it means it's referring to some kind of body or embodiment. And it just means energy. It means energy body, and we're trying to connect to our own energy bodies in the same way. There's a whole, this is a whole tradition, a whole system of theory around visualization and going through these visualizations. And that's something that we can have more formal exploration around later with all of this. So I think that's all I want to say. I composed this text. I want to say it's a tradition for me to do Tara practices on Easter. And for me, that is a way that I make offerings to the divine feminine, to the goddess of Easter, Ostara, whom, this cult of Ostara is where we get these kind of pagan practices of Easter with like the eggs and the Easter bunnies and all of that. And so I'm really connected to kind of her energy on Easter. And I'm also connected to the energy of Mary Magdalene as well. And so Mary Magdalene is also one of, I would say, my guiding energies in my practice as well. And so I really used Ostara and Mary Magdalene, to really touch into the expression of the mother in the form of Tara as well for today. So what else can I say? And to take it easy, again, I just want to reiterate, just taking it easy in the visualizations and in, what I'll be leading you through. This isn't something that you get the first time, and this is going to become a regular practice for us. We want to continue both the Green Tara practice and this new practice, Matara, as well. And so it just takes a little bit of time to work through the visualizations. We're using a lot of pranayama. And so if the breath isn't accessible for you right now, please take it easy. There's an option not to use the breath, but you can just go through the visualizations without using the breath. Pranayama is important for me because it intensifies energy in it. As we know, prana rides the breath, but we're going to use prana and the breath to really get Shakti and Kundalini going. As well in the practice. Oh yeah, we're going to be doing that as well. We're going to be doing some Kundalini in the practice. So it's going to be a little bit involved, but I think it's going to be fun times for the whole family as well. I want to start by first having a drink. Always as Mahajasati Bhagavati would teach, we have to drink as we pour. To begin the practice, I want to just light my candle, offer my candle up. And this is Guadalupe, the Virgin de Guadalupe candle as well, a Virgin Mary candle. Now, just always love the way this looks on the screen. Actually, it looks like magic as well. Tantra, in many ways, is a magic tradition as well. It's a magic tradition, but when we get into the Buddhist tantric side, magic is kind of it's held by the energy of what we call bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the wish only to benefit people. So to achieve enlightenment only to free other people, to practice only to better the lives of other people. So I light my candle, and then, we're going to use this candle to really just call in really positive energy into the space. We're going to call in the mother. We're going to do this in many different ways through the practice, but this is the first way. And I call this practice, let me just pull up the text here so I can start looking at it and not make up anything. I call this beginning to approach the deity, or entering the grace of the deity. And as we know on the Buddhist tantric side of things, we are the deity. So we are the expression of Tara already. What our practices and sadhanas are trying to do is remind us of who we are, because we've forgotten. We have forgotten about our divinity. We've forgotten about how we are expressions of the mother. We're expressions of this divine cosmic consciousness. We're the expressions of Brahma. So we're the expressions of this unity, but we've forgotten that, and we've kind of split into ignorance. And so we're functioning with an ignorance. So this entering the deity's grace is how we start slowing down, and start slowly turning our minds back to this truth that I am the deity. I am Tara. And honestly, that could be your whole practice. It's just sitting and chanting, I am Tara. I am Tara. And often for me, that is enough. And I dedicate this candle again to the lineage of female masters, to the lineage of the mother, to Mary Magdalene, to Astara, to all the goddesses of spring across all the cultures and religions and spiritual paths in the world. And you can almost feel the mother beginning to arise in the space around you. And then we continue by allowing ourselves to come into a position that feels appropriate for us to, to maintain a little bit of practice. We may be sitting in practice for maybe about 45 minutes, 50 minutes, maybe a little bit under an hour. So we ask our bodies how it wants to be for this time. And this is another practice of approaching the deity. If you are the deity, then we should be kind and gentle and reverent with ourselves. So just dropping that question into your experience and into your body, and knowing, again, that all of our bodies have very different narratives right now. So this gentle approach is about being sensitive to your level of trauma, to your level of woundedness that you're carrying physically. So giving ourselves lots of choice and space is how we even honor the trauma. The trauma, too, is also an expression of the deity. But the problem is we don't see into the essence, the nature of trauma to understand that. So once you've come into a position that feels okay for you, I invite you to shift your attention to your breath. And again, if your breath isn't accessible right now, just don't focus on the breath. Return to something that feels neutral. But if you can access your breath, just focusing on the breath and breathing in and out of the nose. And stay with the breath just for a few moments. And if you can, deepening the inhale and the exhale. We can ride the breath into the lap of the mother, into Matara. One of Tara's origin stories is that she traced the origin of sound. She traced the origin of sound, which I think is beautiful. And we can trace the origin of breath as well. And that will take us right into the lap of the mother. Just a few more breaths. And throughout any part of this practice, and this comes directly out of my practice, at any point in the practice, or as much as I can during the practice, I am just always opening and reaching for the mother. I'm always opening and reaching for the mother. I'm opening my mind, I'm settling my awareness, offering space to everything in my mind. And that's how I reach for the mothers, through spaciousness. The mother comes and touches us within the spaciousness of our minds. Compassion arises out of the spaciousness of our minds. Love arises out of the spaciousness. Where love and compassion arises, that is where the mother is abiding. And I invite you to now begin to reflect on something that you're grateful for. Feeling the energy of gratitude growing as warmth within the heart center. And again, if your breath is accessible, imagine that you're breathing in and out of the heart center. And as you inhale, imagine that the breath is feeding into the energy of gratitude growing in the heart center, like oxygen feeding into a fire. And slowly we can begin to imagine that the inhale also begins to circulate the energy of gratitude throughout the body. And I invite you to sit within this gratitude just for a few moments. And now I invite you to turn your attention to the earth under you, to notice it. And again, if you know the native indigenous name of the land you are practicing on, I invite you to call the earth this name and ask it to hold you during this practice. Thank it for always holding you. And share the energy of gratitude down into the earth under you, blessing the earth and thanks. Now turning your attention back to the breath, asking your breath to continue to support you during this practice, thanking it for always supporting you. And also share this energy of gratitude into your breath. And even at this moment, you can dedicate your breath to all the members of our world who are struggling to breathe physically because of the COVID-19 virus. And that we are breathing on their behalf, and we're dedicating and sending this energy of breath to them to remove all the obstacles for their breath. And now I invite you to summon your guardian protectors and energies. So this includes your any deities, spirits, ancestors, members of your lineage, teachers, elders, guides, any being who guides you, who supports you, who protects you. These energetic beings, these formless beings that we don't necessarily see, but maybe we feel sometimes. But just formally inviting them into this space to sit with you. Thanking them for their guidance, their protection, especially now. Especially now. There's so many beings, so many guardian spirits and guides and benefactors and ancestors who are so much a part of our struggle, who are helping to hold our struggle, to hold our fear, to hold our instability. We have only but to call on them for support, for guidance. So we call them now into the space and we ask them to hold us, to support us. And then we share this energy of gratitude out to them in the form of light, in the form of radiant warmth, any way that feels appropriate for you. Now turn your attention back to yourself. And I love to just actually, again, bring my palm to my heart center. And this reminds me of me, that I am here sitting on this cushion, that Rod is here in this reality on this earth, practicing and struggling and trying to get woke and free and enlightened. So I turn my attention back to myself, and I turn this energy of gratitude back to myself, and I thank myself. No matter how much I struggle with my body sometimes, I thank my body. I thank my mind. And I continue to ask my body to support me during this practice as well. And so this first part of the practice that we're finishing now is called the approach practice, or entering into the grace of the deity. Now we move on to our main practice. And first I invite you to turn your attention back to your guides, your guardians, your ancestors, whom I will call our benefactors. Turning your attention back to your benefactors and just imagining that they're all sitting around you in this circle of care. And slowly imagine that your benefactors begin to radiate this energy of care, which can feel like love or compassion or kindness, depending on what's appropriate for you. But they begin to radiate this energy of care into the circle around you. And the circle just begins to fill with this energy of care. And for me, this feels like warmth. And I begin to feel that warmth, this, touching the outside of my skin. And slowly that energy begins to sink into my body. And again, if you can't be within the body right now, just hold your attention outside of the body, okay? But if you can, allowing the energy to sink into the body, into the skin, the muscles and bones, the tissues, cells, molecules, into your fat cells, especially allowing this energy of care to sink into the parts of your body that you don't really care much about. One of the hardest aspects of compassion practice and love practice, particularly in the tradition of the mothers, is allowing ourselves to be cared for, to be loved, allowing ourselves to actually accept love. And so it's okay if this feels really hard and difficult and overwhelming. Whenever it feels overwhelming, please shift your attention to something neutral or just returning back to touching the earth. Letting the earth hold you and ground this energy that feels overwhelming. But I invite you to begin to imagine that this energy of care in the body begins to collect at the base of the spine, within the root chakra. So at this point, I just want to offer just one final reminder that as we continue working really intensely with breath, that if you find the breath triggering or unsettling, just don't do the breath, but just do the visualizations as I guide around the energy, which you'll see in just a moment. But if you can't get to the breath, if you can't do some of these practices, don't do it. Okay? So I probably won't remind you again in the practice, but just always know that you have that agency to make a choice. So now, shifting back to our breath, imagine that you're breathing in and out of the root chakra. And I just want you to also, if you can, keep the breath moving in and out of the nose as you're imagining breathing in and out of the root chakra. So now we're going to change the direction of that breath. We're going to shift into a Sushumna or a Uma breath, and we're just going to imagine breathing up and down the spine. So breathing up and down the spine. And of course, what we're really doing is trying to breathe up and down the central channel that runs parallel to the spine, that runs from the root chakra up to the seventh chakra, to the top of our heads. Just breathing up and down. Just seeing if you can stay with the breath just as it moves up and down. And you may be feeling a little warm now, and that's okay. That's part of the practice. And it's okay if you don't feel anything. That's also a part of the practice as well. Okay. Now, returning your attention back to the base of the spine. We're going to continue with a breath practice that's going to take us chakra by chakra up the body to the seventh chakra at the top of the head. And so the pattern will be breathing into the chakra, holding the breath in that chakra for about 5 seconds, and then exhaling the energy and the breath from that practice up into the next chakra. Breathing normally, and then breathing into that chakra again, holding for 5 seconds, exhaling up to the next chakra, so forth and so on until we get to the seventh chakra. Okay? So let's begin with the root chakra. So breathing into the root chakra and holding the breath in the root chakra for 5 seconds. And now exhaling that breath and energy up to the second chakra, which is in the pelvis, genitalia area, the sacral chakra. Releasing that breath and energy into that second chakra. Breathing normally. Okay. Now again, breathing into the second chakra. Holding the breath and energy there for 5 seconds. And And now exhaling the breath and energy up to the third chakra, the solar plexus, and the navel area. Breathing normally. And now starting again, breathing deeply into the third chakra, holding the breath and energy for 5 seconds. Now exhaling that energy and breath up to the fourth chakra, which is the heart center. Releasing that breath and energy in the heart center. Breathing normally. Now starting the breath again. Holding. Releasing that breath up into the throat chakra now. Breathing normally. Now starting the breath again. Breathing in, holding. Releasing that breath up into the third eye. Breathing normally. Now starting the breath again, breathing into the third eye. Holding for 5 seconds. Releasing up into the seventh chakra at the crown of the head. Okay. Just breathing normally. On our last breath, we're going to breathe into the chakra, hold it, and then we're going to actually slowly send this energy and breath out above our heads into the space, just right in front of us. And we can imagine that this energy is actually a pearl of white light that comes out of our heads and it comes just right into the space in front of us. Because we're going to start animating this space in front of us very soon. Okay. So let's begin. Breathing into the seventh chakra, holding that breath. And now releasing that breath by imagining a ball of white light ascending out of the head and now hovering and floating in the space just above eye level, above eye level. And so this ball of light, this little pearl of light, however you actually want to imagine that, is an expression of our consciousness. It is a part of us. And again, as we continue our visualizations, you don't have to see anything clearly. You don't have to, get a picture perfect vision of everything, but at least we should just have a sense that something's happening. So not everyone is going to get everything perfectly visualized, but you can simply say, oh, this is happening. I'm going through the motions. Something's happening and I can trust that. And that's all we actually have to do. Okay. But of course, if you can visualize and do that really clearly, of course, do that as well. Okay. So at this point, I invite you to turn your attention back to the heart center. Okay. So kind of leaving the ball of light up there, coming back to our heart center. And I want us to just start by opening up the heart center, which is like opening up our minds to our own discomfort in this moment. The things that we're struggling with, the fear, the anxiety, the boredom, the frustration, the terror, the worry, the grief, sadness, hopelessness. Just opening up to that energy, giving that energy a lot of space, just opening up, getting wide, just letting it be there. And now reflect on all the beings, all the folks in the world, your family, your friends, your roommates, housemates, people in your neighborhood, everyone, just reflecting on the reality, the truth that everyone else around you is probably struggling as well. A lot of people around you are also afraid or sad or grieving. That all beings are uncomfortable in some way. Now turning your attention back to yourself, to your own discomfort, and developing the wish, the aspiration, the desire to be free from the suffering, from this discomfort. You can simply tell yourself, may I be free from this discomfort, this suffering, this fear, this sadness, this grief. And then turning your attention back out to other beings, saying, may others be free from their suffering, from their discomfort, and so forth. And then lastly, we say, may we all be free from suffering. Now turning your attention back up to the ball of white light in front of you. And again, just keeping our attention on the ball of white light. You can see it in your mind, you can see it actually in front of you, or just have a sense that it's there. Either way, again, say, may we all be free from suffering. And as you say that, just imagine that this ball of light begins to radiate even more intensely, and suddenly a wave of really strong, bright light erupts from this ball of light. And imagine that it just kind of sweeps and wipes through the whole world. It touches all beings, all objects. And as this light touches and washes through everything in the world, this light collects all the suffering in the world. And imagine that after this wave of light collects all the suffering in the world, that it comes back and is reabsorbed by the ball of white light in front of you. And all the suffering in the world is dissolved within this ball of light. And when that happens, instantly, this ball of light transforms into green Tara. And of course, to help out, refer back to the link that I offered you in the chat box to get a picture of green Tara to begin with. But this ball of white light transforms into green Tara, and green Tara is, of course, the color green. She is sitting on a lotus seat. Her right leg is extended outward over the lotus seat, being supported by another lotus that has grown up to support her right foot. She is draped and dressed in these immaculate silks and jewelries. She was radiating and glowing this intense energy, and this energy is the energy of her deep enlightenment, her deep compassion for us and all beings. And she gazes down at us with this intense expression of love and openness and non-judgmental acceptance, as if in this moment she is a combination, a concentration of all the beings who love us. The green Tara is above us, our circle of care, our benefactors are still around us as well, still radiating energy of care into the circle. And this is Ma Tara, the Mother Tara. Just sitting for another moment or two, gazing up at Tara, or imagining gazing up, or just imagining that she is just simply watching and looking down at you. Sitting under her gaze, meeting her gaze, this is an expression of the sacred gaze, our darshan, the darshan of the deity. And now we transition into what I call right now the 8 supplications to Matara. And the first supplication is acknowledgement of Matara through a bow. And so just bowing in any way that feels appropriate for you, acknowledging the presence of the mother. And next, I invite you to offer mental offerings in your mind. So imagine that the space around Matara begins to be filled with all kinds of precious offerings like flowers and jewels and incense, all the things that are precious to us, you know. So I'm offering all kinds of desserts and cakes and gold and silver and Apple products and MacBooks and iPhones and the beautiful boys and beer and many cocktails. So making these offerings to the mother, and this is an expression of generosity. And the deity doesn't see the offering itself. The deity sees the generosity, the openness, the vulnerability. This is ultimately what we're offering to the mother, is openness and vulnerability in the form of things that we're attached to, the things that bring us joy and pleasure. And also at this point, you can actually make physical offerings of actual flowers or incense if you have it as well. Or you offer light as well. So as if you're just offering these waves of bright, intense, pure light to the deity. And third, the third offering or the third supplication to the mother is by actually confessing past wrongs or anything that weighs heavily on our conscience, anything that we've done that has created harm. So in our minds, we imagine simply confessing that to the mother. We confess it to the mother, and she doesn't judge us. She doesn't criticize us. She just opens her heart up to us. So confessing all the shit that I do, that I know it's wrong, and I know it's harmful, and I even offer that to her. And next, I offer my aversion or my unwillingness to practice, and particularly my unwillingness to be in relationship to her in this moment. So I even offer that, my resistance. And fifth, I offer my suffering. So my discomfort, my suffering, however that manifests for me, maybe in the form of fear, maybe in the form of despair or grief or loneliness. I offer all of that to the mother, to my Tara. And sixth, I offer my gratitude to the mother. Gratitude for this blessing, the gratitude for this practice, the gratitude of being alive, the gratitude of whatever it may be, but the gratitude, whatever this gratitude is, I offer it to her. I offer it to her because of her. Maybe I'm grateful because of her, but whatever gratitude we experience, we offer to her. Seventh, we ask the mother, Matara, to never abandon us or any being in this world, to always protect us, to always guide us, to always stay with us, even during the most difficult times and even in the easiest, best times. Anytime, stay with us and hold us. And lastly, we dedicate everything to the mother. So everything is given over to the mother. Everything, even the nature of reality, the essence of reality itself, I offer to the mother because the mother is the essence of reality. So I give away everything back to her. And the next part of the practice is what I call a supplication prayer to Matara. And when you get the text, this is going to be part of the text where I want you to write your own prayer to Tara to recite at this section. So finishing up these 8 supplications, you end by just offering a prayer of your own composition. I will offer mine, which is something I think some of you have read before. But I offer this prayer to the mother. Blessed Mother, though I understand the nature of the relative and know this world to be like an uncomfortable dream, it is not my true home. Please bless me that I may survive the violence and trauma of trying to wake up, and may I endure the violence of helping others to wake up as well. May I never forget that love will only set me free, and when love is absent and no longer there to hold my despair, then I will be overcome by the despair, which will give rise to unfathomable violence against myself and others. Bless me that I do not forget who I am and what I am called to be. Help me to remember that I do not need to be comfortable or without conflict to be happy. Remind me that happiness is my true self, a self that is deep and spacious, that holds the tragedy of this dream in its warmth, and is the condition from which I am able to move through the world being wounded, but still celebrating, still working to free others. Though I must cry sometimes and experience private personal tantrums where I struggle to believe in love and want to tell everyone to fuck off. Please remind me that it is okay to be weary and sad, to not like certain people or groups sometimes. Help me to remember that I owe no one explanations or apologies for the ways I choose to take care of myself and to survive my skin color, sexuality, gender, fatness, lust, hunger, arrogance, conceit, or my politics and religion. Remind me that I am overwhelmed and never let me forget, so is everyone else. These are what my prayers sound like today. Mother, Matara, bless me that as this dream continues, you never leave me. Your presence is why this dream is not a nightmare. So at this moment in the practice, I surrender to this belief. Surrender to this belief that Tara is actually present. So, in other words, I start believing truly that I've been able to summon the mother into the space to be with me. So, at this moment, just readjusting, coming back into the space, shaking it off just a little bit, and just refreshing the practice, doing a little bit of simple movement. And as we prepare to move into the second part of the practice, okay, take a quick sip of water. So Tara is still in front of us. Our circle of care is still around us, okay? So imagine Tara reaches down and places a white lotus on top of our heads. This placing of this lotus is a sign of Matara's compassion for us, as well as her permission for us to approach her practice and begin the work of becoming her in this practice. Now turn your attention back to your seventh chakra. And imagine that within the seventh chakra, there is a closed lotus, the color of violet. Now turn your attention back to the white lotus on top of your head. And imagine that that lotus melts into white light, which begins to sink down into your seventh chakra, where it is absorbed by this violet chakra. Imagine that as the lotus, the closed lotus absorbs this light, it slowly begins to open, radiating this violet colored light within the chakra that balances and purifies the chakra. So just taking your time with that. So the lotus, the white lotus melts into white light. That white light sinks down into the seventh chakra, and the closed, the violet lotus begins to absorb that energy and slowly begins to bloom in the chakra. And if you can, actually accompany this with the actual hand movement. So the blooming lotus, feeling that action of the hand opening up. That openness in the seventh chakra is the chakra coming into balance. Now turn your attention to your third eye, the sixth chakra. And in that chakra is a closed indigo colored lotus. Okay. So imagine that this white light from the seventh chakra actually begins to sink down from that open lotus into the sixth chakra, the third eye, where that indigo closed lotus absorbs that white light and also begins to slowly bloom open and radiating this intense, beautiful indigo light within the sixth chakra. And that chakra comes into balance. Now turning your attention down to the throat chakra. And in the throat chakra, there is a closed blue lotus. So imagine that this white light from this indigo lotus begins to flow down to the throat chakra, absorbed by this closed lotus, and it slowly begins to blossom and radiating this really beautiful blue light within the throat chakra. And turning our attention down to our fourth chakra, the heart chakra. And noticing and imagining a closed green lotus in the heart chakra. Turning our attention back to the throat chakra, imagining that white light beginning to flow down into the heart chakra, being absorbed by that closed green lotus. And slowly that green lotus begins to blossom, radiating this beautiful green light, the same green as Tara above us. Now turning our attention down to the third chakra, to the navel, to the solar plexus. And so we're noticing a yellow closed lotus in the navel plexus. I'm sorry, in the solar plexus, the navel area. So imagine that this white light from this beautiful green lotus begins to sink down into the third chakra, being absorbed by this yellow closed lotus. And slowly, this closed yellow lotus begins to open and bloom. And as it opens and blooms, it begins to radiate this beautiful yellow energy light in the third chakra, the color of the sun rising at dawn. And the chakra comes into balance. And now shifting our attention down to our sacral chakra, the genitalia pelvis area, to the second chakra, imagining that there is a closed orange lotus in that chakra. Turning our attention back to the third chakra, imagining that from this yellow lotus, this white light begins to sink down into the second chakra, being absorbed by this orange closed lotus, and slowly this orange lotus begins to blossom. And the second chakra comes into balance. Now we imagine shifting our attention down to our root chakra again at the base of our spines, noticing this closed red lotus. Now turning our attention back up to the second chakra, imagining that the white light from this orange open lotus begins to sink down into the root chakra, being absorbed by this closed lotus, and slowly this red lotus begins to open and bloom in the root chakra. And now the root chakra is in balance. And now we move into a really special part of the practice. And this is our Bhumi Sparsha part of the practice, or another expression of Bhumi Sparsha, which is touching the earth practice. So now imagine that white light in the base chakra begins to sink down out of the body into the earth itself. And that energy, that white light, blesses the earth. Now turn your attention back to the earth and imagine that your attention is touching down into the earth in the same way the Buddha touched the earth as he neared enlightenment. Now imagine that the earth touches us back. We feel the earth touching us, the element of earth touching our attention. And this is a form of validation that we have a right to finally step into the form of Green Tara herself. And once we have that validation, we instantly become Green Tara, an exact reflection of the Tara in front of us. So we imagine ourselves green in color, sitting on a lotus, our right leg extended, draped and adorned in silks and precious things, jewelries, whatever is appropriate for us in the moment, we imagine. And we only simply have to tell ourselves that we are Tara and we are Tara. You don't have to imagine, you don't have to do anything else but simply tell yourself you are Tara. And so we move into our mantra, our first of 2 mantra recitations. And again, refer back to the first link to have a copy or to see the mantra itself. And we will just simply, for today's practice, simply sit within the realization or the belief that we are Tara. And we're just going to rest our minds within the form of Tara, and we can also use the Tara in front of us as an anchor as well. And then we can begin to chant the mantra, and I'll be using a drum as well. So sit and chanting, resting our minds within the form of Tara. O so ham tare tu tare tu re 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 so ham Soham tare tu tare tu re. Soham tare tu tare tu re. Just sitting for a moment in the form of Tara, or within the thought of you being Tara, surrounded by our circle of benefactors and Tara appearing in front of us as well, still gazing down at us lovingly. And now I invite you to reflect on your fear, on the things that you're afraid of in this moment. And this is the beginning of our approaching white Tara. Reflecting on your fear, opening up to the fear, and imagine that that fear begins to gather in your heart center, and it begins to gather and to compress, and slowly that fear transforms into white Tara. And as that fear transforms into white Tara completely dissolves that fear into emptiness. And so we sit as green Tara, imagining white Tara appearing within our heart centers as green Tara. And green Tara is white in color, again adorned with silks and scarves and jewelry. She is sitting in full lotus, where we as green Tara are sitting with our right legs extended. And white Tara consumes all the fear in our experience. We give her all of our fear. And we'll begin to chant the mantra again. However, as we're chanting the mantra, I invite you to reflect on all the beings in the world that are struggling with fear. Imagine that the white Tara in your heart center radiates and flashes out white light out over the whole world, collecting all the fear and terror. And imagine that that light is recollected back into the heart center of Tara, of white Tara herself. And during the mantra, keep sending out light, dissolving and collecting that light and absorbing that light with the fear back into the heart of white Tara, where it is completely dissolved, and imagining that all beings keep getting freed over and over again from the suffering of fear. And doing this all while we chant the mantra again. Oh, soham tare tu re 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 soham tare to Tare, to so ah. Hmm. I'm just offering space to my broken heart right now. It is being held by my circle of protection and by Tara. And you just offer it space, and you just lay your broken heart at the feet of the mother as an offering. So, so at the end of the practice, we dissolve our circle of care around us and imagine that the circle of care dissolves into white light, and that white light is absorbed into the heart center of white Tara, which is in our heart center as Tara. And now imagine that the Tara in front of us, before we dissolve Tara in front of us, we thank her for her love and her guidance. And we imagine that she begins to dissolve into white light, and that white light is also absorbed into the heart of white Tara. And now imagine that white Tara in your heart center begins to dissolve as well into your heart center. And then dissolve your body, its green Tara, into a ball of white light. And imagine that the ball of white light dissolves into emptiness. And then rest your awareness within emptiness itself. And so we're coming back to our bodies, coming back into the space. And I actually, this isn't in the practice, but I want to just recite our prayer, our Shantideva prayer from the Medicine Buddha practice, which is, one of my favorite prayers. I feel compelled to recite it now. And if you have that handy, though, you can pull that up. But if you don't, you can just kind of sit and listen. And this is the dedication. We can call this the dedication of merit. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. just like space. And all the great elements, such as Earth. May I always support the life of all boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain. May I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach until the ends of space. Thank you all so much for your practice. As we kind of close up, like it's it's so important for us right now to be. I say this every single day, everything that I teach these days. I say this all the time. You have to have refuge. You have to have a source of refuge. You need something to hold your broken heart, be it Tara, be it Medicine Buddha, be it Earth, be it loved ones, family, your collective, God, whomever. You need someone to hold, the brokenheartedness. And you have to learn how to lay the brokenheartedness at the feet of your refuge. Because we can't hold it on our own. We can't keep holding it, by ourselves. We have to rely on our refuge and our communities to hold us. And that is the path of liberation, is being held, being cared for, surrendering. Surrendering to the mother, surrendering to Matara. Everything to the mother. Everything to the mother. Everything to the feet of the mother. Okay, so check the schedule for our next practice session. Please join me tomorrow as we practice Medicine Buddha. And I may actually get through Medicine Buddha tomorrow without falling apart, who knows. God, there's nothing sadder than having a meltdown and there not being enough light. So tomorrow 7, we're going to do Medicine Buddha, and then our practice group is 11:30 again tomorrow. And check the schedule for the next Matara practice, which I can't think of it off the top of my head. Okay, all right. Well, it's been fun, everyone, and I will talk to you and see you again soon. So stay connected, stay on the schedule, keep joining our practice groups and everything. Thank you, everyone. It's been real.